Hi, my name's Nick Davis and welcome to this short video. The reason why I put this video together is because of an incident I was told about by a family member the other day, which involved a child being approached by some strangers in a vehicle whilst coming back from school. Now, I don't know the full circumstances of this incident, but I do know the child was safe and well. But the family member was, as a result of obviously having grandchildren themselves, was quite concerned. So I thought in that respect I'd put this video together to give some tips on general child safety in the street. Now, fortunately, incidents like this are fairly rare, even though they're quite serious. And obviously, and understandably, parents and children are quite concerned about them. And it is something that has been covered in the press as of late. For instance, Wales Online reported about 5 incidents of a male acting suspiciously in a Range Rover near parents and children in Cardiff, which have happened over the past 2 or 3 months. And so it is stuff that does go on. So it's worthwhile the child or your child having street safety awareness. So basically, these are my 5 top tips for this. The first one is actually something I came across myself the other day in another Wales Online article, which I thought was quite good, which is basically you going out with your child and walking the route that they would take to and from school or from the school pickup point so that they're familiar with it. And while you're doing this, you can point out places or safe locations they can go to, such as friends' houses or shops or other such locations in the event of an emergency. And the benefits of this is that the child will know what to do in advance, and it's basically prior planning. It's like a recce, effectively. So I think that's a good tip, and I would certainly suggest doing that. And on top of that, I would suggest also, as well as looking at the main route, looking at alternative routes that they could take so they could vary where they go. As long as obviously those alternative routes are safe in themselves and don't have any secluded locations, and where obviously they've also got places which they can go to, friends' houses, etc., etc. So that's the first tip. The second tip is that if the child is walking on the road, obviously normally be on the pavement, but if it's a road that hasn't got a pavement, whether on the pavement or on the road, they should always face the oncoming traffic. And the reason for this is it makes it more difficult, if they do that, for somebody to drive up behind them and stop and potentially approach them. So if they approach the oncoming traffic, they can see what's coming, and if they do see a potential threat, strangers or possibility of somebody trying to attack them, at least they can take a step back. Say if a vehicle comes to a stop, they can turn around and they can run to one of the safe locations which you mentioned before. So that's the second tip. The third tip I suggest is that they have their smartphone and mobile phone with them, because most children do have these devices nowadays. Now, I appreciate if they go to school, it might be that the school rules are that they can't actually have them with them while they're in school and they're going to be put in a safe location. But I certainly think it's a good idea if they do have those with them when they're going to and from school itself. And obviously the main reason is that they can actually phone somebody in an emergency. And of course, if the phone does get lost, if they've memorised some emergency numbers, then at least they can use those if they get somebody else to assist them. So there's that. But obviously, in relation to mobile phones, smartphones, it's important to encourage them not to actually use them when they're walking down the street, and especially not to use headphones as well, because basically they can be distracted, and it's easier obviously to be approached or even attacked when they're distracted. Okay, so that's the third tip. The fourth tip I would suggest is that they could always carry a separate personal attack alarm alongside their phone as well, just in case, say, the phone was to get lost. And there are some good personal attack alarms about. For instance, the one that I can think of, which I'm familiar with, is the EPOS Gear one, which you can actually find on Amazon. It's quite inexpensive, and it is basically operate just by pulling out a lanyard, for instance, and it lets off a very loud, audible alarm. Alternatively, you could actually have a personal safety app downloaded onto the phone itself. And you can actually get ones such as, for instance, the Holly Guard, which is produced for the Holly Gazard Trust, which basically operates like, basically you take the phone and you shake it, and that operates the app. And it does such things as, say, for instance, give you location, etc., to the emergency services. I'll say that's not the only one. You can actually find a good list of various apps for personal safety purposes on the Susie Lamplugh site if you want to check that out. So that's my fourth tip. My fifth tip I would suggest is that if a child is approached at all, or even, God forbid, attacked, then what they should do is shout and scream as loudly as possible, shout for help, at the very minimum, and turn and run, and again off in opposite direction, off towards their safe location. if, and this is very much the last resort, and this is one I did get off the that same article from Wales Online, but if they do get actually grabbed or for whatever reason somebody tries to make a grab for them, they can swing their arms in like a sort of windmill fashion to try and disrupt that person, and again obviously make their escape. So there we go. Those are the 5 top tips that I would suggest. And if you want to find out more about this, actually, this video is going to be embedded on a blog post on my website, and there'll be links to, say, that article which I mentioned, also Susie Land Polluter Trust and other such resources, where you can find out more information and more tips for awareness that you can teach to your children. So that's about it, really. If you've got any questions at all or anything you'd like to ask me about, then I can always be contacted, as ever, on mail@nicholas-davis.com. I'm certainly very pleased to assist. And I say that about wraps it up for this video. So thank you much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.